Hey, what's up guys? Welcome back to another video in the Kotlin series. In this video, I'll be teaching you about Boolean expressions. Alright everybody, welcome back. So in the last two episodes, I taught you guys about the Boolean logical operators, which is stuff like AND, OR, NOT, and XOR, which is a way of doing Boolean logic on Booleans to produce a new Boolean. But then I also taught you guys about the comparison operators like greater than, less than, greater than or equal to, less than or equal to, equal to, and not equal to. These are comparison operators that also evaluate to a Boolean value of true or false. But the reality is that whenever you're making programs, you're often going to combine these two things together to create an expression, a Boolean expression, which is simply an expression that you create in code that evaluates to a Boolean value, okay? And we just learned about the if statement, right? And with if statements, we know that we have to provide a condition for different code to be evaluated, right? Based on that condition. So it's going to be the same thing for other types of control flow statements like while loops, do while loops, and other stuff like that. We need to be able to craft conditions that meet the needs of our program. So with all that said, I just want to give you guys a few examples of different ways that you can combine all these different things that we learned about so far. I'm not going to go too complex, but I just want to give you guys a few examples of how to use these two things here, these Boolean logical operators and these comparison operators to create Boolean expressions for your conditions, okay? So let's go and start with a very basic example. So let's say that we have a variable is raining, and currently it is raining, and then we also have is snowing, and it is not snowing right now. And we want to make an if statement, so we'll say if is raining or is snowing. So if it's raining or it's snowing, what we want to do is print line, it's bad outside, I'm staying home today. So we've just made a program that is able to make a decision, essentially. We have these two variables here, which can be a true or false because they're Booleans. They have true or false for their values. And then we have this Boolean expression here that says if it's raining or if it's snowing, then we're going to stay inside today because we don't want to go out and, in the rain or snow, right? Let me just give you another example here of, something that we already went over, but let me just do it again. So if the age is 17 of this variable, we do age is greater than or equal to 18, we can make a decision. We could say, you can vote now, okay? So here we're simply using a comparison operator to see if the value of this variable, age, is greater than or equal to 18. If it is, then we go ahead and run this code here. Otherwise, we could say like, you cannot vote, okay? So now let's go ahead and take these two things and combine them. So here we're using logical operators and here we're using comparison operators. Let's go ahead and give you an example where they're combined. So let's say we have a variable is tall, and is tall is evaluated to true, and we could say age is equal to 90. We're just going to reassign age to 90 for our example here. And we're going to go ahead and say if age is greater than or equal to 18 and they're tall, then what we want to do is allow them to ride the roller coaster because the roller coaster has a height limit, right? So we could say you can ride the roller coaster. Otherwise, we could say sorry, you can't ride yet. All right. So here we have our comparison being made, and this is going to be evaluated to true or false. In this case, it'll be true just because age is greater than 18, of course. It's 90. And then on the right side of this and, we have is tall, which is going to be true or false. This is a Boolean that provides true or false, and it's true, right? And so you can think of it as, when it's being evaluated, you can think of it as going here and saying, okay, is age greater than or equal to 18? It is, okay, so we're going to replace this with true. And now this is pretty simple, right? So true and is tall. So if both of these are true, then the entire thing is going to evaluate to true, and it is because is tall is equal to true, so we get true. And so since this entire condition is now true, we can run this code inside of here. That's the basic idea of how these things get evaluated, okay? So there we go. We have now combined a Boolean logical operation with a comparison operation, all right? But we can go ahead and make this a little more complex if you want to. So obviously, we may not want our 90-year-old grandpa to be riding a roller coaster, right? So we may want to add another condition so that, it accounts for that. So we could say if the age is greater than or equal to 18 and age is less than or equal to 60 and they are tall, then you could ride the roller coaster. So now it's going to be within this range specifically, not just greater than 18, okay? So I think that makes more sense. So now our Boolean expression here is a lot more complex. We can see that we now have two ands, so it's doing and twice, and then now we also have two comparison operations being done. So let's just go ahead and run this now to see what we get. We should of course get this output here because all of these things are true. So let's go ahead and run this. Oh, sorry, I made a mistake here. It's obviously going to be false because age is greater than 60. It's going to be 90, right? As you can see here. So this entire thing will be false, and then it should run this code here. So that's why if we look at the output here, it says, sorry, you can't ride yet. But if we're going to change this to 55, so it's below 60 and also greater than 18, it should be true. So it says you should ride the roller coaster. Or you can ride the roller coaster. There we go. Perfect. Now, something you can do if you want to is you can add parentheses to establish your order of operations. In this case, it isn't necessary because we're using all ands, and so it's just going to evaluate them one by one to see if they're all true or not. But in this case, with these parentheses here, you can think of it as being evaluated in a slightly different way. First, it's going to go here and say, okay, are both of these things true for this and here? So are both of these comparisons true? If they are, then replace the entire thing with true. And then now you can evaluate this and that we have here. So are both of these true? If they are, then replace the entire thing with true. I just like to add them sometimes just because it's easier to understand. But in certain situations, you need to have them so that you're running the code in a specific order. So if we change this here to an or, so we say age is greater than or equal to 18 and less than or equal to 60, or they're tall, then they can ride the roller coaster. So in this case, they can be, outside of the range here, but if they're tall, then they can ride the roller coaster. So if we change this to 90 again, just to see what this gives us, we should be able to ride the roller coaster. So it says you can because we're outside the range, but we are tall. So let me give you another example where a parentheses makes a little bit more sense when you're doing these expressions here. So we'll say Val has invitation, that's going to be true. We'll have Val knows the host. That's going to be false. Okay, and then we're going to say if. We're going to say has invitation or knows the host and it's not raining. So we're using the not operator here, as you can see with the exclamation point. And then we open that up and we could say if all of that evaluates to true, then we want to say we're heading to the party. Otherwise, if it's not true, then we could say not the best day for a party. Okay, so I think this is pretty simple to understand, especially with these parentheses here. I think it makes it very clear. So we're simply saying if they have the invitation or they know the host, and then also it is not raining, then they can go to the party. Okay, so in this case, has invitation is true, so this entire thing is going to be evaluated to true because one of them are true. And then for is raining, if we go back up here, is raining is true currently, so it's going to negate that. So this should actually be false. So and false. So if we just go and replace this with true, because we know that's true, we know this is going to be true and false, so the entire thing should be false. So it should run this one here. So let me just go ahead and run this to verify that fact. And I'm just going to say right now that I'm going through these kind of quickly. Some of these are pretty simple, but if you've never done this before, of course, if you're new to programming or you've never played around with these types of expressions before, I don't expect you to automatically just know how to read this right off the bat. It will take some practice, of course. Just write more programs, pause the video to try and understand it. It takes practice, okay? It's not something that you should get right away, of course, all right? So now that we ran it, we got not the best day for a party because of the reason that I told you before. This one is false. So in this case, I initially put the parentheses here just because it makes it easier to read, in my opinion. In some situations, they're not required. Like up here, we can remove it. But if we remove it here, I want to see what happens. I want to show you guys what happens. So now we got heading to the party. Initially it was false, but now that's true, it's doing heading to the party. This is because we have something called operator precedence. So let me type that out. Operator precedence. So what this means is that certain operators, like these Boolean logical operators that we have here, have a higher precedence, or they're ran first when it comes to order of operations. Okay. So it goes in this order. So if we have not, we have and we have or. That is the order that an expression will be evaluated in, okay? So whenever Kotlin comes here and tries to run this program, it's going to see, okay, I have a Boolean expression here, so it's going to find any nots. It's going to evaluate this not here. So we know that is raining is true up top, right? So this will be first evaluated to false. And now we have and, so it's going to look for any ands. And so it's saying, okay, found an and here, so it's going to evaluate and on these two things that we have here. So knows the host is false. So this is false and false. That's going to so that will be false. And then finally we have an or, which is the lowest operator in the operator precedence. So it's just going to evaluate these two here. So has invitation is true, meaning that this entire thing will be true because for or only one of them has to be true, so it's true. And so that is why if we remove the parentheses that we had before, operator precedence makes it so that it doesn't evaluate in the way that we quite expect it to. So as a rule, I would say whenever you're writing these Boolean expressions here, try to surround them in parentheses where it makes sense. So you don't necessarily have to memorize the operator precedence, although it's important to, as long as you just surround the parts of your Boolean expressions that go together. So in this case, has invitation, knows the host kind of goes together because we're trying to figure out should they go to the party or not. So we're going to surround that in a parentheses. And then otherwise we have, we need the thing here is raining. And otherwise we have is raining, which doesn't really go with the other part of it. So we're just going to leave it on its own on the other end of the and. So these parentheses here are going to have the highest precedence. I didn't actually include that before because it's not a Boolean logical operator, but now that we're rewriting this expression here, we can see that it has the parentheses, so we're going to include that, and it's going to have the highest precedence, okay? So whenever it evaluates this, it's just going to simply go in here and say, okay, I'm going to first find the highest level of parentheses, so it's just going to be this one here. So we're going to go inside of that parentheses and evaluate the sub-expression. So in this case, we just have an or, so this will be evaluated to true or false, which is true. And so now we can replace this entire thing with true, and now we have a simple and. So saying true and this will be false. So it's going to evaluate the entire thing as false. Okay, so hopefully that all makes sense. Hopefully I'm not going too fast for you guys, but I think if you just take note of these operator precedences that I give you here, just know that, you have parentheses, not, and or. It's going to be evaluated in that order specifically. I think you should be okay. So that is important to know. All right, so now that we've gone over operator precedence, there's something else I want to show you guys. Almost done here. This is called short circuiting. So we're just going to have a variable here is weekend, and that's going to be false. Need vitamin D, that's going to be true. And then we're going to have an if, so we'll say if is the weekend and need vitamin D. Then we're going to go ahead and time to go to the beach. Otherwise, another day of work. Okay, so this is a very basic and that we're doing here. So all short circuiting is that whenever you evaluate an and, like this here, if the first one is false, like that, if that evaluates to false, then it's not even going to check the right side of the and. It's going to just skip that and just go to false, because there's no point in checking the right side if the first one is false, because for and, as you remember, both of them has to be true. Both sides of the and has to evaluate to true for the entire thing to be true. So if the first side is false, there's no need to check the second side, so it's just going to skip it. That's what short circuiting is, okay? And this would actually come up more than you would think. This is pretty useful to know, I would say. And that's pretty much all I want to show you guys for this episode. Hopefully you learned a lot. Let me just give you guys a quick recap here. So I taught you guys how to do Boolean expressions, which are simply expressions that evaluate to a Boolean value, true or false. And so this is going to be useful for crafting conditions for our control flow statements. And the first thing I taught you guys was how to combine your Boolean logical operators and the comparison operators to create these types of, Boolean expressions like this one here. It's pretty complex. And then after that, I taught you guys how to create a little more complex Boolean expressions here just by adding more parts to the expression. So if we look closely here, we kind of have 4 different things being done. So we check this one, we check this one, we check this one, and then we check the entire thing after that. So we can add as much as we want to this Boolean expression as long as it, actually makes sense for the needs of our program. And then after that, I taught you guys about order of operations for Boolean expressions and how operator precedence plays into that. So you just simply evaluate in the order of parentheses, not, and or. And then finally, I just taught you guys about short circuiting, which simply means is that if the left side of an and is false, then it's not going to check the right side. It's just going to skip it and it's not going to be evaluated, okay? And that's it. Thanks for watching, everybody. Stay tuned for next episode where we learn about when expressions. So that's it for this video, everybody. I really hope you learned something new. If you liked the video, please hit the like button, and if you want to see more, hit that subscribe button. Make sure to also check the description below for important links to code and other resources, but also really important, join our Discord. We have a big community of over 5,000 programmers, and it's a place where you can find new friends or get help on any code that you're stuck on. If you want to support what I do on this channel, please consider hitting the join button below, and this will allow you to support my channel for as low as $1 a month, but there are different tiers to choose from if you want to. For anyone that becomes a member on my channel, you get a special rank on my Discord server, early access to new videos, and you can just see yourself on the screen right now. So if that sounds cool to you, feel free to join. If you don't want to, that's fine. If you can't, that's okay too. I really just appreciate you watching the video anyway. Thank you so much. And that's it. Peace.